Alright guys, and welcome to this Python tutorial. In this class I'm going to teach us about functions in Python programming. And so what is a function is in the first place before we dive into the topic mainly. A function is a block of code that can be used to perform or carry out a specific task. And function is such that it can only perform a task or can only be activated when it is being called. We're going to learn how to create a function in this place. To create a function, we use the def keyword. This is what I mean. You can see the color change automatically because it is a keyword. So to create your own function, you use the def keyword. You start with the def keyword. This def keyword is used to define and to declare a function before creating a name. So what's the syntax for creating a function? You first of all declare the def keyword followed by the function name, the def keyword, and then followed by the function name with a parenthesis and your colon. This is the syntax for creating function in Python. With the def keyword followed by the function name, you can use any name as your function name, then followed by the parenthesis of the function name and a colon. For example, let me create a very simple function that will print an hello world or hello at the output, a kind of greetings. So I can say def greetings, then followed by my parentheses. This is the name of my function. The greetings here is the name of my function. You can give your function any name you like. Then I'll come down and print hello there. So this function, I created a function using the def keyword, and then as I use the def keyword here, my function is created and it is automatically declared and defined because of this def keyword, and then followed by the name of my function, the greetings, and then the parentheses of the function and the colon. So my function is created. I'm going to print keyword. If I run my program, you'll see what happened here. You can see nothing is printed at the output here. Nothing is printed. It's blank because I have not called my function. That's why I defined a function earlier in my definition. I said a function, it can only be activated or can only carry out a task when and where it is being called. So after creating your function and defining the statement which you want the function to carry out, the task you want it to carry out, you come down and call your function. You must call a function for a function to be executed. For that function to execute a task, you must call it. So you can see this is how we call a function. Call your function name and followed by parentheses. So if I run my program now, you can see it will be printed hello there. You can see at the output here it has been printed because I have called my function. You can print as many things you want, but this is how to create and to declare a function in Python. And so hello there, welcome home. So if I run my program again, you can see the output hello there, welcome home. This is how it works. That's just the basis of creating a function in Python programming. There's what we call arguments and parameters in Python. Arguments are the actual values passed into or inside a function parenthesis. Let me show us what I mean by that. If I want to create a function that will be able to add two or more values, that the addition of two or more values, I define my function using the def keyword and then the function name. But you should try to ensure that your function name, you use a nice name for your function. Though you can use any name, but try ensure that the name of your function is nice enough and it follows. And then you can see this is all called parentheses. I define my function and then name it addition. That's the name of my function, addition. And then I pass in some parameters inside or argument inside my function. That's what we call parameters of the functions. So x and y are the parameters that I passed into the parentheses of my function named addition. So I'll come down and say add equals x plus y. We know this simple addition operator, right? Alright, so we'll come down and print add. Then if you print out, if I run this program normally, it will not, nothing will be printed. You can see nothing will be printed because I have not called my function. And then I'm going to pass an argument. I'll call my function. How do you call your function? The name you gave to your function while creating your function, then followed by parentheses, and then you now pass in argument. This is what we call arguments. 5 and 6 here, they are the arguments which I passed into the parameters of my function parentheses. Is it understood? So this is what we call arguments. The 5 and 6 here, they are what we call arguments, which are passed into the parameters of my function parentheses. On a normal ideology, you know that 5 is for x. 5 is already passed into x and 6 is passed into y. So if I now print my program, you can see the addition of those two numbers here, which is 11. You can see the output here. So that's how it works. This is a very simple function to add two numbers. So these are to pass argument into function parameters. So instead of passing differently, you can as well pass an argument for each function parameters right inside the function parentheses. How do I mean? Instead of doing this one, you can pass the argument right inside the function parentheses. The function parentheses is where the x and y are. So if I come here and pass that same value, let's say 6 or let's say 5, and then here and make it 6. All right, but you must call your function. Here I created my function using a def keyword and then followed by the name of my function, which is addition, and then I passed my argument into my function parameters right inside the function parentheses. Is it understood? So this is another way of doing it. If I run my program, you see the same result. Can you see? This is basically how to create a function to add two or more values or numbers together. So this is how it works. This is the basis of function, and we have different types of function which we are going to talk about in this class. So in Python programming, we have 4 types of functions. We have the built-in function, the Python built-in functions. We have the user-defined functions. We have the anonymous functions, and then we have the recursive functions. But in this class, we are going to talk about the 3 main types of Python functions, which are the built-in functions, the user-defined functions, and the anonymous functions. We will treat them one by one. So the Python built-in function, which we know, we have always been using them right from the day one of this tutorial. Right from beginning, we've been using the Python built-in function, but maybe unknown to you. So the Python built-in functions are follow-come Python functions, which can carry out their specific task when they are used. They are not created by the programmers or by anybody or by the user. They are Python follow-come functions, which can only carry out their task when they are being used. For example, we have the print function. This print function, you know what it functions, you know its purpose, you know that it is a Python built-in function. This is an example of a Python built-in function. So it is used to print out or to access values at the output, as we all know. And we have the len function. These are examples of built-in function. This len function, the len function is used to determine the length of a list or the length of any value, as we know. So for example, if you know how to use the print function already. If I create let me say a variable, if I create a variable and then pass a value into it using a string, let's pass a value into it, Toyota. So you can use the len function. You can say print. We're going to use this how to use the len function. We're going to determine how many length is our string. So we use the len function to determine the length of a string. So I'll print len, then inside the len function, passing the variable you created So len 5, you can see it's 6. You can see the output here 6. So the length of this of the strings we stored inside our variable car is 6. You can count the words, you'll see that. So that's how this len function work. This is what we call built-in function. We have so many types of built-in function in Python programming. We also have the lower, the upper, that is to convert a particular word to upper and to lower. So we can use print car.lower, then followed by each parenthesis. You can see it will convert all the upper cases of this word, of this string, to lower cases. So these are what we call built-in functions in Python programming. They are Python functions that can only be effective or can only carry out their task when they are being used. So these are Python built-in functions. We have so many of them which we can use to carry out specific tasks, as we know. That's all about the Python built-in function. We have a whole lot of them which we cannot exhaust in this training. So we'll just stop here and move on to the user-defined function. The second type of function we are going to consider in this training, in this class, is the user-defined function, UDF. So the user-defined function are functions created by the user or the programmer to help themselves out. Function helps as well to lessen a bulky line of code. That's the importance of function. The user-defined functions are created by using the standard def keyword. So the one I did earlier while I was explaining or giving an example of function was the user-defined function. We use the standard def keyword, which is this, to define, to create the user-defined function. So when you use this def keyword, automatically you are creating a user function. This is what we call user-defined function. We use it so much here. Let me create a simple function that will return the username and age, and as well as maybe the address, as the case may be. So I'll come and say def, then biodata. This is the name of my function. You can give your function any name, def, and biodata. I'll pass in my parameters, name, age, inside my function parenthesis, and maybe address, as the case may be, and then followed by my colon. Very important. I'll come down and print. I'll use the f string to concatenate. I'll print f using the f string. I'll print hi. Then followed by name. I'll say name, and then comma, you are age, then age. We know how to do this, right? This is concatenation, which we have learned earlier how to concatenate. You are age, years old, and then I'll use the new tab to separate the words. The new tab, all right. Okay, space, and then new tab. You lives in, then address. Just study this code so that you understand this concatenation. Is very important. I have taught us how to concatenate in our earlier classes. So now I have concatenated this. I'll now come down and then call my function biodata. I'll call my function by using its name, and then inside this function that I called here, I'll now pass the arguments to those parameters which I define inside my function parenthesis. So I'll use for, all right. I'll use for, and then comma. Always remember to separate with comma, and then maybe the address should be something Nigeria, as the case may be. So you now see, now I created a function and then pass in parameters inside the function parentheses, which are name, address, and age. and then I called my function by using its name bill underscore data, and then pass in an argument. I pass in the arguments to those function parameters. The ball is for name, is passed into name as an argument, and 23 is passed into age as an argument, as well as Nigeria is passed into address as an argument. So if I run my program, you see the result here. You can see, hi Paul, you are 23 years old, you lives in Nigeria. So you see, this is the beauty of function. So this function is created here, and then you can use it anywhere in your program. So this is how to do that. Let's write another simple function program to add all the numbers in a list. We use the def keyword to create the user-defined function. Do not forget. So let me create a simple Python function to add all the numbers in a list. So I'll create it using the def keyword, and then followed by my function name. Then I'll pass nums as a parameter of my function, and then I'll come down and say z equals 0. We'll make z equals 0 because we are going to add from 0 to the number that we have in our list. Then for x in nums, we know how to use this for condition now, the for loop condition now. We know how to use that. For x in nums, then we'll have z plus equals x, then return. We use this return keyword to return values of functions being called or being created. So we use it when creating functions to return values of functions. So return, and then I'll call my function now, print add. Then I'll now create the list of my function here. Now I'll now create the list of my function. Let me use maybe 2, 3, 4 thereabout. Okay, and then 1. All right, so just study the code. I created a function using the def keyword. This is a user-defined function, add, and then nums. I pass the parameters, then come down and say z equals 0 because we are going to add all the numbers in this list. You can say print, then add. I called my function here. So if I run my program, you'll see they will all be added. You can see 12 here. So this is the addition of those numbers. This is the addition of all these values, 2, 2, 3, 4, and 1. So this is how it works. This is how to create a user-defined function. You can as well do the multiplication of these numbers. You change this addition operator to multiplication operator and change this to 0, because if you leave this z at 0, everything will be multiplied by this 0 and it will return 0. So you change it to 1, and then if I come down and run my program again, you see the multiplication of all those numbers. It returns 48 here. So you can see now you can use it to do a whole lot of things. You can do as well the subtraction using the subtraction operator, the subtraction of all the numbers in this list. You can see we have minus 12. That's the subtraction of all these numbers. All right, so let's move on to the anonymous function here. The anonymous function are functions which are defined with the lambda keyword. They are also called lambda functions, and they are defined using the lambda. Look at it, the lambda keyword. They are defined using the lambda keyword. They are not defined using the standard def keyword. So the syntax is lambda, then followed by the argument, and then colon, then the expression. you give the expression of the function. So this is the syntax for creating an anonymous function or a lambda function. For example, if you want to create a lambda function that will add two numbers, we'll define a variable add and then lambda. Then inside the variable lambda and then num1 lambda, then, or let's use a. Alright, let's use a here. A, then followed by colon, and then a plus 10. This is a lambda function. So if I come down and then print add, I have called the function here, and then inside it you now pass in your argument. I run the program, you see it's 18. You can see now. So 10 plus 8, 8 plus 10 is 18. So this argument 8 is passed into the parameter a. This is how to create a lambda function. This is the syntax for creating a lambda function. So you can also do it in this way. You can do something like this. You can create as many parameter as you like, num1, num2, and then say maybe num3, as the case may be, always followed by a colon. We are going to multiply all this number using the multiplication operator, num1 then num2 times num3. So now we can change this to more. Let's just change this to more. Then we'll come down, print more. Then inside the move function, we'll now pass the argument into each of those parameters, num1, num2, and num3. So let's pass 2, 4, and maybe 3. Okay, something like this. Is it understood? This is how to create a lambda function. This is an anonymous function. So if I run the program, you see the multiplication of those 4 values is printed here as 24. So this is how to create a lambda function or an anonymous function. And then the number of arguments must correspond the parameters you have. Remember, we have num1, num2, and num3. That is 3 parameters, and then we have 3 arguments here which are passed into each of our parameters. So always remember to pass your argument which will correspond the number of parameters you have. So this is what we call anonymous function. So here we are going to do a very simple project that will be able to calculate the factorial of any numbers. So we have def using the def keyword, and then num factorial, num underscore factorial. You can use any name for your function, remember that. And then num factorial, and then I will pass n. Alright, if n it equals 0, return. If n equals 0, return 1. Else return n times num factorial. You now call the function here num factorial. Then we now pass the variable num minus 1. Then we'll now come down and we'll say n should be equal to int. Impute, enter any number to determine the factorial. Enter any number to determine the factorial. Alright, so we're gonna come here and say print the factorial. Print the factorial of, we are using the f string. We use f string to concatenate this. The factorial of n is and then inside another curly bracket we now call the function num factorial. If I run the program, you can see enter any number. If I enter that 12 and click, you can see the factorial of that number has been printed here. The factorial of 12 is 47900 and so on. So this is it. This is how it works. This is the factorial of 12. Is it understood? So this is a simple program that returns the factorial of any number that you enter. If I use 25, the factorial of 25 is, you can see the factorial of 25 is this. We also have Python variables. So the variable of any function can either be global or local. Let me create a function. My func name equals Paul. Name equals Paul as a string, and then age equals 23, and then I'll count them and print. I'll use the f string method to concatenate. I'll say hello Paul. Hello Paul, that is the name. Hello name. Alright. Hello Paul, you are age. Hello Paul, you are, then age. I should give a space here. Alright. Hello Paul, you are age. Okay. So that is that. Then I'll now come down and call my function. If you don't call your function, it will not work. It will not perform the task you gave to it. It's very important. Alright, this is how to call a function, you know that. Okay, so if I run this program, you see the outcome, you see the output. You can see hello Paul, you are 23. So this is what we call local variable. The variable name and the variable age, they are all local variables, because outside this function it cannot be accessed. Let me copy this. So let me paste this and then run the program again. You can see it's a name is not well defined because it is outside the function, so it cannot be printed because it's a local variable. But we can use the global keyword to convert it to global variables. So local variables are variables that are created within a function and can only be active within that function. Whereas we have the global variable. The global variables are variables which are created outside a function, and they are used even outside the function. They can be effective outside the function. For example, if I remove all this, okay, let me cut it. If I come outside this function and create the variable, okay, let me paste them here. Okay, so you can see name and age. These are global variables because they are created outside this function, and so they are referred to as global variable. So if I run this program, you can see hello Paul, you are 23. It has been printed. I created those variables outside, but they are accessible. They are accessible inside the function, and they are also accessible outside the function. So if I copy this and come down and run my program, if I print it outside the function, you see it will also run. It will also be executed because it's a global. You can see now it's executed twice because I printed it inside the function and outside the function. So these are global variables. Name and age, they are global variables, and they can be accessible inside and outside a function. So these are what we call function variables. So function variables can either be local or global, but you can as well create let me remove all this. You can create a local variables and convert it to global variable by using the global keyword. You can see you can create a local variable. Let me create a simple local variable, and then let me say name. I'll just call it name. My name. Okay. Then we use the global keyword immediately after the function name. After you're creating your function, you come down and use the global keyword, then name. Then I will now come down and say name equals Paul. Sorry, name equals Paul. You can see now, normally this name is a local variable, but we use the global keyword to convert it to global variable, so it can be accessible inside and outside this function. Print name. You can see Paul is printed out here in our terminal because we have converted it to a variable. That's why it's executed even outside the function. I can also come inside the function and print it, print name. So either inside or outside the function, this variable can be accessible. You can see it's printed double because I printed it inside and outside the function. By using the global keyword, we converted this local variable into global variable. So this is how to do that. Just practice this and get used to this. Learn to create your own function. Alright, so see you in the next class.